career of R&B singer, songwriter, actor, record producer, and musician Brian McKnight has been a very successful one for more than 30 years. Thankfully, he didn't have to go on this journey alone, since he had his family by his side to experience the highs and lows together. However, things took an interesting turn when his children went public with accusations of abandonment that began back when they were very young. Let's find out how things went wrong between Brian McKnight and his children. Born in Buffalo, New York, and raised in Orlando, Florida, as the youngest of four brothers, Brian Kelly McKnight began his love affair with music like so many other African-American children do, in church as a member of the choir. He didn't decide to pursue music on a professional level until he was motivated to do so by his older brother, who landed a record deal with his group, Take Six, an a cappella gospel sextet. Brian thought, if my brother can do it, so can I. And he did. He signed his first record deal at the age of 19, and 4 years after that, released his self-titled debut album. 4 singles were released off the certified platinum album, but it was a smash hit, One Last Cry, which peaked at number 13 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart, that sparked the start of his journey to superstardom and solidified his place as one of the best male vocalists of his generation. Just before the start of his career, at the tender age of 20, Brian married his college sweetheart, singer-songwriter Julie Turney in 1990. They would go on to have 2 sons. It's great that things worked out, since just before the wedding, they were both reeling from the aftermath of being expelled from the very religious school they both attended. Julie was booted for going on an out-of-town trip without permission, and Brian for being caught with Julie in his room without permission. To the people on the outside looking in, they seemed to have it all, but that wasn't the case. In a July 2000 interview with Ebony magazine, it was mentioned that they had been separated twice in the past, alluding to the fact that his career frequently takes him away from his family for long periods of time. Brian said, "It's not easy, but we've decided that no matter what, we're just going to be together." He also added that he believed that even if he worked a regular 9-to-5 job, things wouldn't be any better. He said, "I'm not the type of person who needs or wants somebody on me 24 hours a day. She doesn't either." That statement would prove to be foreshadowing and ironic, since they would both get their wish when they divorced 3 years later, and Brian would do a complete about-face and gush to anyone who would listen about how much he loves being with his new bride every second of every day. So, when did Brian's relationship with his children sour? Well, it's hard to tell. You'll be hard-pressed to find any harsh exchanges between him and any of the 6 of them over the years. Yes, you heard right, 6. Allegedly. Brian and Julie only had 2, but somewhere along the way, he possibly fathered 4 more. The specifics are kind of fuzzy. One woman even took him to court, and the DNA test apparently proved he wasn't the father. Also, according to the birth dates, 3 out of those 4 were born while Brian was still legally married to his wife. Anyway, regardless of how many children Brian actually has, 2 of them decided to publicly air out their grievances with him. In 2019, his eldest son, Brian McKnight Jr., also referred to as BJ, and his sister, Brianna McKnight, both made Instagram posts speaking about the hurt and disappointment they felt towards their father for years of abandonment and neglect. The timing of the post could definitely be seen as desperate with a side of envy, since it came on the heels of a post on Brian Sr.'s account congratulating his stepson Jack on his brand new car, and how proud he was that Jack worked to contribute to the payment without being asked. The post from Brian's children came just a few days later. In 2017, Brian Sr. married his longtime girlfriend, pediatric neurophysiologist Leilani Malia Mendoza, and it seems that's also when things started to really go downhill with his relationship with his older children. BJ's post that has since been deleted reads, "I can't imagine abandoning my children, man. It's hard not to imagine the psyche of a man who can truly just turn his back on his actual sons, on his actual blood and creations. It's mind-boggling to me. I don't think there is any situation that merits the way my father has chosen to treat my brother, my sisters, and his grandchildren, one of which being his firstborn son, who also bears our name. It's insane to me. To have absolutely no empathy for the type of life he introduced us to, only to resent us for that life catching up with us."
Who are you?
Brianna. Brianna McKnight.
Brianna followed up with her own post saying, "I grew up thinking that the things that happened to me and my dad's relationship was my fault. I grew up thinking that he doesn't want to come to visit me because he doesn't love me. Constantly put behind other kids that he would call his own, while I'm cast into a land far, far away in the back of his mind. It sucks knowing that someone else who's not even blood related to you comes before you in every single way. It sucks knowing that my phone calls have to go through a stranger I barely know, that my text messages are read without a response, and that my stepmother tells me that they wish the best for me. It kills me to know that it's so hard for me and my siblings to get a word in. Not one word. At a very young age, I was always second place in my father's heart, maybe even third, fourth, or fifth, depending on the situation. It's not surprising that their father responded immediately, issuing a statement of his own, speaking to the fact that the reason behind the issues his children have with him can be summed up in one word: entitlement. In a 7-minute Instagram video titled "Today's Nonsense," he voices his own suspicions that the outrage probably does stem from the post he made about his stepson's new car, emphasizes the grown man ages of both of his eldest sons, 30 and 27 respectively, even though only BJ made a post, and the fact that he's never missed a day of child support. He said, "I've always been there with advice whether they took it or not. I've always been the sounding board, and I've always been the one that tried to help them achieve whatever dreams they were wanting to reach out for. I guess one of my only faults is that I gave my children everything that I didn't have in the hopes that they would appreciate it, because I know how much I would have appreciated it when I was their age." One major gift that his 2 eldest children did receive was a fully paid apartment for 2 years. The only stipulation was that they take that time to get jobs and become financially stable on their own. 2 years came and went, and that didn't happen, so Brian washed his hands. Their stepmother even gave it her best shot. As a doctor, she used her connections at the hospital she worked at to get both men a job. However, their love for Mary Jane wouldn't allow it to work since they wouldn't be able to pass the mandatory drug test. As if all that wasn't enough, BJ took things to a criminal level when he broke into his father and stepmother's home several months before his viral post and vandalized their property, including their wedding photos. Then things got very weird towards the end of the video when Brian Sr. briefly touches on the subject of his daughter. According to him, his relationship with Brianna deteriorated when her mother cut off all contact right after he had stepped in to deal with the issue of her allegedly having an intimate relationship with one of her older cousins while she was underage. Brian also added, "Her mother only had a child with me for money in the first place," which lends to the idea that the motivation behind the estrangement could have something to do with the fact that Brianna was about to turn 18 later that year, and since the child support payments would likely stop, her mother possibly didn't care about continuing to maintain a strong connection. Now that the dust has settled, it doesn't appear that any moves have been made on either side to bridge the gap between father and child. Leilani, his stepchildren, and in-laws are plastered all over Brian's social media, unlike his own children. As of the making of this video, you need to scroll all the way back to 2018 to find a photo of any of them on his Instagram. Maybe a Red Table Talk conversation is in order. Thanks for watching. Please like and share the video and subscribe for more amazing content. See you next time.